Red Willow Vineyard sits at the far western end of Washington's Yakima Valley. The drive out Wapata Road takes you through farmland with rolling ridges on either side like giant sleeping lions. And there you find Red Willow Vineyard. This iconic and historic vineyard is unassuming. We drive in and find Jonathan Sauer there to greet us. He is humble and excited to have us and show us the vineyard.
Dad tells the story where right about harvest time, he was picking grapes, people going everywhere, and he had this guy show up, and he had a bottle of Barolo and, I don't know, both hands or something, coming up talking a million miles an hour and say, I want you to plant Nebbiolo, and I've got a restaurant over in Seattle area and called Café Juanita and blah blah blah, and Dad's like, okay, that's nice, and kind of busy right now. And later on, Dad went into the wine shop in Yakima, and a really knowledgeable lady was there, and she's like, oh, Nebbiolo, oh yeah, it's like Barolo, that's one of the great varieties of the world, and Café Juanita is like, oh, that's one of the best restaurants over there, and is it Bellevue or Kirkland, and just like, that's a great restaurant, and oh yeah, there's a waiting list for a month to get in there, and so it kind of intrigued Dad, and so he's like, okay, well, we're working with David Lake, who's Master of Wine, and Dad told him, I think I'm going to plant Nebbiolo, and he's like, wow, that's really interesting, but really, if you want to plant a classic variety, I think would be really well suited for your site in Washington. You got to look at Syrah. And so Dad's like, okay, you can find the cuttings, I'll go ahead. So David Lake called down California to Joseph Phelps, right, and secure, he said, I got a Shiraz or the French clone, which one do you want? And David, give us the French clone. So anyway, the Nebbiolo kind of got us started on varieties of trying and bringing it in, and so I went from Nebbiolo to Syrah and Dad started trying to, like, a lot of things, Malbec and Sangiovese and Viognier, and that Syrah led to the Viognier and Matero and just really kind of started that pioneering wave. And then it really wasn't until we made it through a winter in '96. It was a really cold winter that our Syrah did fine and did good, and people were like, okay, it can survive, it can do good up here, and then it kind of took off in the state. So, but for a lot of years, we're pretty much the only ones doing Syrah.
Wow.
And there's Vineyard Designate going back to '88, some old of those bottles, and I knew a few people that opened them up like fairly recently, within the last year or two, and they're still showing really well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
so
it's a great variety that will age well, because you get the good high acids here too.
Yeah, and that was third leaf. We're like, is that even gonna
be any
good? I mean, so young. So and in Europe, they're you like, a lot of them want your vines to be good. They got to be at least 10 years old. And they're kind of, some great wines can be made from young vines, but there is some to that. It kind of goes through that awkward stage, and and early on, and they just settle down, and we really see that with Syrah. They seem to just kind of keep getting better, and maybe we're growing better, but
a little of both, probably.
Yeah. So this block here is about 3 acres of the old Syrah, and a lot of the early on, a lot of the cuttings for the state came from this block.
Wow.
So it's kind of the mother block. Beth's family, he called it Le Cote Patriarch. So he kind of came up with that name, which was fitting, and so he makes the wine from it. And FSD, Mark Fior was just out today looking at his block, and he does a Lanay, and then Andrew Rich down in Oregon makes a Red Willow Syrah as well. So Dad had gotten back from Europe on a trip, and so many of the vineyards are those real low blocks like that, and you gain a little bit of that solar heat from the ground as it reflects, and I'm glad this is all he did from that real low trellis, and we're like, that doesn't really work over here. Just we're always so worried on the ergonomic end,
Right.
and people bending
Yeah,
over
no,
doing
exactly.
work. You know what I mean? It's like, that
Exactly.
doesn't really work around
Yeah.
here.
It does matter.
So
It does.
you
You
don't want
have to
somebody
look out
to.
for your
No, I mean
crew.
totally. It's
Yeah.
over back hours. And to be honest, like Washington, we don't struggle to ripen stuff.
Right.
We have enough sunlight.